Wanting to keep my podcast sponsorships and advertisements free, I stayed away from such options. Instead, earlier this year, an alternative appeared. With my fiancée, we have joined a rapidly growing marketing network for a company which develops technologies and healthcare products based on traditional Chinese medicine. Instead of advertising products and services, I've decided to extend this opportunity to you. While this opportunity may not be for everyone and might still be unavailable in your country, I have no doubt that in time it could be, and therefore, here we are. If you are looking for a side hustle, an alternative way of earning, and a space to grow as your own boss and manager, this program could be for you. Commission-based and fully remote, I believe it to be an opportunity for those who feel like a 9-to-5 model takes away too much of their life and isn't exactly worth their time. If you'd like to learn more, follow the link below. If your country is on the list, you're in. I look forward to working with you, and now, enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to WS Podcast. My name is Wojciech Salski, I'll be your host for today, and before we begin, may I just remind you, if you think this podcast is something worth sharing with the world and you'd like to support it, then please follow the link below, and there are many options out there. Also, you can find me on social media, although, as I mentioned before, for the most part right now I'm only active on Primal. And when it comes to sharing the show with your friends and subscribing or clicking that follow button, please make sure to do so if you find this podcast, something worth listening to and sharing with the world. And thank you for all of you who are supporting the podcast in so many ways. Thank you for you, dear listener, for listening. And quite frankly, thank you for all of you who are suggesting, commenting, and interacting with me. I think that's a wonderful little adventure we have here together. So I guess let's kick it off. This is the new season. Sorry, my throat's a bit crazy today. New season. I'm gonna maybe start by announcing what the season is gonna be mostly about. I'm gonna try to keep it quite thematic, although a few books will be somewhat out of place if you observe the whole. But there is a method to that madness, I promise you. And I guess let's kick it off. So, this season, over the next 10 weeks, I'm planning to share with you a number of books which are related to either health, world and the way it seems to be working, and there will be a few books that are rather shocking in terms of what they seem to tell us or seem to tell me, and I'm hoping to share some of that thought with you about the world. And then the final piece of the puzzle will be finance and financial health. As per usual, majority of it will be related to mind and spirituality, philosophy. If you've listened to an episode before from the show, you know that there are certain themes that keep repeating simply because I just keep finding them across the pages. And so I'll definitely make sure to mention some of these. And excited to be here. I'm by the time you're listening to this, I should be done with my another round of exams. Hopefully I'm much less stressed at the time you're listening to this than right now. But nevertheless, this is what we're here for, and let's kick it off. So today I wanted to start with a very special book, something that I've very recently actually finished and started practicing some of the activities offered in the book, and unknowingly have been practicing one particular exercise about which the book actually talks about as well, which is the book by James Nestor, Breath. And the premise, I guess, of the book in one quote, one short sentence is breathe less, live longer. And we'll explore 5 different themes. They are both actionable and interesting, I think, empowering in many ways. And as per usual, I have some quotes on my notes on screen, and I also have my little wonderful notebook that I've been given as a gift at some point, and I'm using it as a part of the show's support. And we'll explore this wonderful little book. I think, to begin with, I'm just gonna say my fiance actually suggested I read that book because she borrowed it from a friend and it was on her shelf a while back. And to her credit, that's why I'm mentioning it, because probably at some point she's going to listen to the episode. And I feel very grateful, for having such a person in my life. I think at the time, it just sort of was like, oh yeah, maybe later, whatever, just kind of left to the side. And then I heard about this book both on Joe Rogan's podcast, as well as another source somewhere. Maybe it was actually mentioned in another book. Anyway, suddenly this epiphany appears when I'm back visiting my fiancée, and I'm just looking at the bookshelf, and there's the book. I'm like, well, it's probably about time I actually face the music, so to speak. So, yeah. The book itself is fairly easy to read. It's not as short as an adventure, an amateur adventure reader might want, but it's certainly useful and very actionable. So I will, for your benefit and for my benefit into the future, I will mention the 7 or 8 action points at the very end of the episode. Even if you don't read the book, I think as long as you take those in and practice, you will still benefit. But of course, as per usual, guys, if there is anything out there that I would fight for in terms of my podcast sharing, is the idea and the messaging from the podcast is this idea that the best way to learn is to just explore for yourself and to learn for yourself, to read. And, just by the mere activity of reading, you're probably getting ahead, because unfortunately many people these days are just using AI to read for them effectively. Or they are not reading at all, too busy with watching some TV, I guess, or short videos on TikTok. Anyway, having said that, let's kick it off. And the first major topic really is about nasal breathing, and apparently it's the foundation for our health being optimal. So the quote is, "The nose filters, heats, and treats raw air. Most of us know that, but so many of us don't realize, at least I didn't realize, how profound the effects of nasal breathing can be." That's the quote directly from James Nestor in the book. It's funny how at the time of this recording right now, as I'm exploring this, I can feel my nose being a little bit stuffed, which makes me breathe through my mouth, which I know I shouldn't. But the idea is your nose is for breathing. Unfortunately, many of us, and me included, although I've been working on this for quite some time, so I think on average I breathe more through my nose than through my mouth at this point. Unfortunately, many of us these days basically have forgotten how to breathe properly. And according to James's exploration and research of research that he proposes in the book, this is the biggest game changer to begin with. Your nose has all the tools to make sure that you that you breathe optimally, and that you don't get diseases through breathing, that you don't strain, that you don't underperform in terms of oxygenating your blood and oxygenating your body. Basically, he mentions again and again in the book, even in the later chapters, that if there is one thing that he would say to change, is simply to breathe through your nose. And that's probably the biggest and also one of the easiest, if you think about it, not to begin with, but certainly as a change, one of the least intense and time consuming change you can make for the benefit of your body. So apparently, it's whenever we breathe through our mouth, we're actually basically breathing the air either too cold or too hot, not treated for any, not filtered for any viruses, diseases, dust, any particles that we should not get into our cardiovascular and respiratory system. Long-term mouth breathing can apparently lead to such issues as sleep apnea, anxiety, reduced oxygen delivery, and basically, if you snore, the premise of the book, one of the many points that he makes again and again, is that you wouldn't you are not doomed to snore, and your partner is not doomed to hearing you snore for the rest of your life if you breathe through your nose. Apparently snoring is basically impossible when you're breathing through your nose. It's only when we breathe through our mouth, and only when our tongue and our mouth collapse in, sort of obstructing the way for that breath to happen, that we start to snore. And the funny thing here, that at the moment, thank God, I don't think I have that much problem with snoring. Although I did notice, for example, and I had a chat with my partner about it, that whenever I would used to drink, and I bet you would agree with this as well, after drinking, people tend to snore, even if they don't snore usually, and it's for good reason. Basically drinking promotes the how would you say it? Not necessarily weakening, but loosening of your muscles, such as your tongue, and not only. So especially if you've drunk a lot and effectively you've rendered yourself a little bit, floppy, your body feels sluggish and you're asleep, and you're much more likely to snore if that occurs. So on the other side, nasal breathing is a cure for not only like enhancing your lung capacity and basically lowering your stress levels, which we'll explore in a second, but also it allows us to breathe optimally, to the point that when you breathe through your mouth, you might be breathing too fast or too shallow, or not enough or too much, while with the nose, as much as you can still manage to breathe too shallow, too much, too little through your nose, because of the nose's many tools, it's much more likely to bring you the optimal amount at the optimal time. And quite frankly, it's much more difficult to hyperventilate breathing through your nose, which is why you're much less stressed when you do so. Because as we'll explore in a second, a big part of our lack of breathing technique and our lousy breathing, if you think about it, the body has to make up for that in many different ways. So, for example, the one big change as you learn to breathe through your nose, especially when you do training, workouts, or maybe if you play any sort of sports, maybe you run, is once you learn how to breathe through your nose, and ideally at minimum breathe in through your nose, and then you can, for example, that's my technique actually, because I've been doing the breathing exercises through my nose and out of my mouth for so long, I default into this system. It's not as great as being able to breathe through your nose in and out constantly, but it definitely beats breathing in through your mouth. That's the biggest changer here. And when you're breathing through your nose, when you're working out, at first you might see that it's a bit challenging to get used to it. I remember we ran a half marathon with my friend Anthony, and we were both, after those few days of retreat, learning how to breathe and meditate, and not only. And I remember we ran with this in mind, and it was also winter, so we really had to pay attention not to breathe through our mouth, because essentially if you're running around in winter and you're breathing through your mouth, that's the most likelihood that you're gonna get your mouth and your throat, the back of your throat, too cold, because you're not filtering the air and you're not warming it up like you do with your nose. And I remember that being a big challenge, especially later in the run. I remember us having a sort of interaction back and forth, just how difficult it is to get used to. But over time, I have no doubt, and according to James Nestor's exploration and studies that he quotes throughout the book, it is a game changer, especially if you're a professional athlete, or if you're a person that will benefit from an enhanced lung and breathing capacity, which quite frankly is everyone. It's just on different levels, right? Some people will use it for actually working out and achieving best in class records, and some people might just have a better night's sleep. So here the 2 points that I wanted to leave you with as we go to the next theme is, first of all, I know this might sound a bit crazy to begin with, but try taping your mouth before going to sleep. So we've done that with my friend Anthony during the retreat, and I do it on the daily. This is not to say that the whole of my night I sleep with the tape. I usually wake up with the tape, crinkled up, maybe sometimes stuck to my face or stuck to my pillow. Or sometimes throughout the night I end up, waking up and sort of taking it off. Whatever, I don't know what's happening at those times, to be honest. But the point is to try and introduce and basically rewire your body to relearn how to breathe through your nose when you sleep. And this is going to be the biggest change for you that you can make, which is also the cheapest one. I mean, how much does it cost to get a painter's tape? That's the one I'm using, like a paper painting tape. You can experiment with other tapes. I've tried finger tape for jiu-jitsu at some point. I've tried the normal industrial tape, and that was horrific. I've tried plasters. They are not that bad either. But for me, so far, it seems that a nice slither of paper tape, not too wide, so I'm not, completely taping my face, but just narrow enough that it allows me sort of to cover this area, so I'm not, so I'm not inclined, both consciously and subconsciously, to breathe through my mouth. I would encourage you to try So, do it for a few weeks. Don't do it just for one day. It's not going to help much if you just do it once. All of these changes take time, as many changes in life. But this is by far the most easy and also the most impactful, especially for your partner if you're a snorer, or if you have trouble sleeping, or you have anxiety, sleep apnea, and stuff like that. This is by far the biggest game changer from my perspective, at least. And secondly, simply practice breathing through your nose. And that means, for example, when you're at the gym, make conscious effort to breathe through your nose. When you're working out, when you're going for a walk, whatever, maybe try with the tape. If you're going running, try with the tape. That's also a great way of having a conversation starter when someone encounters you on the street and you're running with your tape, with your mouth taped. I know I did that. It's a bit weird, but who cares? People don't really care about you anyway. People don't care about anyone else but themselves most of the time. But I found that quite interesting. It was definitely a conversation starter. So try taping your mouth and try basically practicing breathing through your nose. Okay, so our second second theme is actually quite an obvious one for us on this show. Breathing basically changes your state, and that's an obvious one. And I'm pretty sure you're experiencing it on the daily, no matter what you do, no matter your hobbies and activities. If you breathe very quickly and shallowly, you're gonna get yourself more worked up. That's the kind of breathing that ends up when you're really, really stressed. Basically, especially when you're taking a big gasp, when something shocks you, it's like, that gasp is basically your body trying to get a big load of oxygen into your body quickly, preparing all of the muscles and all of the cells for potentially fight-flight system. There is also the freeze system, which is really interesting. This is one of the fun facts that I definitely wanted to share with you, that I didn't realize, but it makes sense now. Do you think? So, for example, for me, for the longest time, I thought that it's a bit weird that we humans obviously have a fight mode, we have flight mode, but we don't seem to have that freeze mode. I always thought that what freeze means for us, so fight obviously is to face the challenge or to fight with the predator. Flight is obviously running away and retreating. And the freeze, what I thought freeze is when people sometimes freeze in certain shocking situations. They, literally just stop and they don't know what to do. And to a certain degree, I bet that is freeze, if you think about it. By definition, if you freeze in the moment, sort of looking around what to do, then that is, freeze. But apparently, and I've not thought about that before, the way we faint is our way of freezing. So I bet you've seen, or I bet you've experienced some animals playing dead. Our fainting is literally that. It's playing dead. So we mimic being dead by fainting, which is also the freeze situation. So, how fainting happens is apparently your body becomes so shocked, your mind body becomes so shocked at whatever is happening that it decides to switch off, in the hope that that the predator will not be interested in a dead one, right? It's the same way as, for example, beetles do that. I have a vivid memory from childhood of a little beetle playing dead, and I was so sure that it's dead at that point that I lost interest in it. But it was still on the I think it was on the terrace of our summer house. And then at some point I sort of turned around, did something else, and came back, and it was alive again. And I was so shocked by that idea at the time. but yeah, the idea here is that we are fainting, and that's our freeze response. So the quote here for our second theme is: modern research is showing us that making even slight adjustments to the way we inhale and exhale can jumpstart athletic performance, rejuvenate internal organs, halt snoring, asthma, and autoimmune disease, and even straighten scoliotic spines. Yeah, so in this part of the book, which is a few chapters early on, there are some shocking findings and examples of people literally curing the many troubles, challenges of their life through learning how to breathe properly and changing the way they breathe. So the one thing to try is this idea of coherent breathing, which is basically a 5.5 second inhale, 5.5 second exhale rhythm, which apparently basically calms our nervous system. It allows us to reduce stress and basically become more present. If you think about it, breath as an experience is the closest I would say, the easiest to observe in the present. And it's literally happening in the present. You can observe your thoughts, but that is a bit more challenging. And thoughts can actually take you out of your present state. If you think about the future, you reminisce about the past and whatnot. But I think for a good reason, this is why so many techniques and so many traditions of meditation and spiritual practice and prayer come down to connecting with your breath to begin with, at least, because breath allows us to be in the moment. It's very interesting that even though this breathing we do involuntarily all the time, we still can voluntarily affect it. It's such a powerful and almost like a bridge connecting the conscious and subconscious and the body and the mind. A quote from Thich Nhat Hanh that I found in relation to that, and I just had it in my notes, I wrote it here. Breath is the bridge which connects life to consciousness, which unites your body to your thoughts. Whenever your mind is scattered, use your breath as the means to take hold of your mind again. By becoming aware of your breathing and by controlling it, you can either, as we said earlier, introduce stress into your body, and we'll explore in a second the good potential stress, as well as you can relax yourself. So, if you remember from the book The Power of Now, I'm gonna link it here. When we talked about the power of now, we talked about this space we have between what is happening and how we react, right? And being mindful is all about widening this gap, right? So if you say something to me and I react instantaneously, basically I'm only reactive. I don't think what I'm gonna do, I just do it, or I don't think what I'm gonna say, I just say it. That's not really too skillful, at least in this idea of being mindful and actually choosing what you do. A much more proactive or creative approach would be, you say something to me and I allow myself these few seconds even And you can obviously widen that gap, and the wider it gets, the more time you have to come up with the appropriate, maybe more kind, maybe more skillful approach and answer. You widen this gap, and so you stop being reactive and you become creative, proactive, right? So by the same token, if my breathing is shallow and fast, and it's basically dictated by whatever is happening around me or whatever my body is going through. Maybe there is a stressful situation, maybe someone's shouting at me, whatever. That's being reactive, right? My body and my mind are reacting to the world. The moment I take a few deep breaths, maybe I compose myself through those breaths as well. I slow down my heartbeat by slowly breathing and controlling my breath. In a way, I'm also becoming in control of my body and mind, and so I become creative, proactive once again. So the invitation here certainly is to choose through your breathing how do you want to act, right? There are times when deep breaths and slow breaths are appropriate. There are times when they are pretty much impossible and inappropriate, right? If I'm running, as much as I can try to have slow, deep breaths, at some point my body will force me to increase at least the tempo of those breaths, as long as I keep running, basically, simply because the body will need that additional oxygenation, that additional tempo of exchanging gases, both CO2 and oxygen. But the thing is, you can be in control. This is the whole point of it. The same way as you can be in control of your mind by observing your thoughts and your reactions to the world and choosing what you actually give to the world back. In the same way, you can be in control of your body and your breath by practicing, becoming, controlling your breath. It's this wonderful thing that we do involuntarily on the daily, but we can also voluntarily change it, right? So yeah, I would encourage you to consider this as an invitation to try. Now, the book, actually the subtitle of the book has, from what I remember, I'm gonna. I don't remember. I'm gonna check it. It had something to do with finding the lost art of breathing, basically, and this is because for the most part we've always known how to breathe because it's the most essential. Yeah, quite frankly, it is the most essential activity that we do at all times. And we've always done that, the same as animals do it, those that do breathe. And even if the animal is not breathing in a sense of oxygenating in and out, this exchange of energy and gases is what lies at the root of life, essentially. Take a look at trees or take a look at bacteria. It's all the same. So the quote here is, "No matter what you eat, how much you exercise, how skinny or young or wise you are, none of it matters if you're not breathing properly." James Nestor makes a point that unless we bring back our ability to breathe properly, we are gonna keep losing touch with reality, with the best way to live, and we are gonna continue on this treadmill of chronic stress, poor sleep, weakened immunity, autoimmune diseases, basically getting ourselves worse and worse over time. One big thing that you might notice me, especially if you are a breathing expert, I don't breathe through my diaphragm right now as much as I would like to, and even though I am practicing that, fairly regularly through my Wim Hof breathing, it's still not second nature to me. So this is just to point to the fact that it's not as easy as one day and you're done. Oh, someone told me breathe through your diaphragm, and suddenly, oh, of course, like I'm sorted. It's gonna probably take you some time. The quote here that I noted down as well is, where there is lack of oxygen absorption, cancer and death follows. And this is a huge part, guys. You know, as much as we live in the world that is much better in many ways than what we've had before, in terms of our mind, body and soul connection, I think, and health especially, I think we are miserable. You know, our medicine right now is so advanced. They can modify genes, and you know, they can basically run like crazy complex surgeries and transplants, and at the same time we don't know how to breathe. An average person does not breathe the way they should, and an average person does not eat the way they should. And you know, for the most part, an average person doesn't do much of average activities good in comparison to what we used to. The one thing I wanted to note here, and this is very close to my heart because I literally have struggled with it and still am struggling with it, is apparently because of the many comforts that we've created for ourselves over the millennia, we have gotten worse and worse at breathing by default. So, for example, a fun fact for you, back in the day, before we started cooking everything, and before we started processing our food more and more, making it more and more easily chewable, easily edible, we've not had problems with our teeth as much as we do. So James explored the many research that has been done showing that before the Industrial Revolution, people had much less problems with their teeth and with their size of their mouth and with the space in their mouth. Not many people had crooked teeth. Not many people had crooked mouths because they chewed much more. You had to chew so much more, back in the agrarian and also the, even before that, the tribal times. We are losing it. I think on average, an average person does have some sort of a problem with their mouth. I know I did. I wore braces essentially for, I think, 10 years of my life, 2 of which were like the fixed braces that are on my teeth at all times. And I still have a retainer right now, because I know that the moment I take the retainer out, my teeth within a few years will just become crooked again, simply because my mouth is imperfect. And, it's one thing to make peace with it, and that's fine, but it's another to realize that this does not have to be this way. If you chew more, and there are also some activities such as mewing, which I'll link below, the author of that mew technique, Dr. Mike, I think he's called. He was interviewed by James for the book, and he came up with this technique that you can do, in your spare time, I guess, to improve your strength of your mouth and effectively over time widen the space in your mouth. Because the very interesting thing is that our mouth and our bones of our face change throughout the whole of the life, which is also very hopeful, because basically that means if you learn how to breathe better and if you start applying these different techniques, you can improve your health and you can improve your mouth structure. You can make your mouth better. You can literally reshape your face as well. So, all these problems such as people have these days, such as overbite, underbite, not enough space inside for the wisdom teeth, which we take out. So I assume I'm a bit less wise because of it. All of that does not have to be there as long as you practice, especially early on, and this is a call to parents out there, to teach your kids very quickly, very young, to breathe through their nose, because breathing through our mouth exaggerates these problems. And again, also to chew more, to not be eating as much processed food that is very easily chewable, as we've explored in ultra processed people. I'll link it below. There was this test to be done, which is if something melts in your mouth in a few chews, like 2 or 3 bites, that probably means it's it's ultra processed, or at least processed. All of these mouth problems do not have to be there if we work on them, if we work on ourselves. And one more thing to note here on this lost art of breathing idea is that apparently, I don't know if you know this word prana, or ki or chi. Prana is in Indian, ki is in Japanese, and chi is the Chinese word for it. It's basically life energy. And ancient texts, scriptures, cultures till this day, those cultures, if you ask someone from those corners of the earth that is aware of their ancestors' stories, apparently this life energy is essentially what they believed to be the energy behind all life, and it was very closely connected to breathing. So through good quality breath, they believed they can impact and basically enhance the well-being, reduce inflammation, improve life, essentially. And the empowering part of this idea is that it's a lost art, but it's a part of our past, and for it to be lost does not mean that you cannot find it. This book offers you those guides, and there are many more out there that probably do, as well as you could sign up for classes that allow you to learn that from experts. So my warmest invitation is get involved, get interested, and start breathing better, essentially, and regain this art of breathing which we've had for so many generations, and we've just forgotten it fairly recently because of all the comfort that life has brought us, that civilization has brought us. Now, this is actually a big point I wanted to make, which is like a side point, but not really. If you think about it, if you look around, the majority of our comforts are trade-offs. We trade off the comfort of AC and heating for lower immunity system, lower immune system, because instead of keeping ourselves hot or cold, we have external tools, devices to keep us hot or cold. Because of the comforts of instant delivery, food for demand, all of this instant gratification online, we trade our ability to cook, our ability to move more, and get in better shape. So there are so many a trade-off of technology connecting us, that people feel more disconnected than ever nowadays, right? That's the whole point of the Anxious Generation story, which I'll also link below, which is a wonderful, a really, really powerful book to explore, really up to date. So, the point is that beware of trading your comfort for something else, because there is a trade-off, and if you don't know what the trade-off is, then ask yourself what that trade-off is. What is it that you're giving up or forfeiting for the benefit of the comfort that you have. Maybe the comfort of lying on the couch on the weekend is the trade-off that later in life you will have it more difficult than those that didn't lie on the couch, but they pursued their dreams or they did something. Now, in terms of the fourth idea, this is the closest to my heart in terms of actually practicing it. It's the idea that by holding our breath, we unlock stronger mind, stronger body, and vitality, essentially. So the quote here is, "The trick is to extend the length of time we can tolerate holding our breath, which increases our ability to handle stress and enhances our physical and mental resilience." This is a big one, guys. This is quite relevant to what we said earlier, right? Exploring that gap, making it wider, lengthening that gap. Personally, I've been practicing Wim Hof breathing, which is basically Tumo breathing, if you look it up. And I'll link below the Wim Hof breathing for beginners, which I've learned first, and it's a wonderful recording. It only takes 11 minutes of your time, and it certainly is a game changer. I've been practicing it now for more than 4 years. I think as long as the podcast is running, or even longer. It's definitely one of the things that I picked up during COVID as well. As I explored Wim Hof's, adventures and insights. It's a game changer. If you try it, you'll see just how much longer you can hold your breath that you ever thought possible. And this is by lengthening that space, you basically lengthen the space between the need for breathing and the panic that you need to breathe as well. The way I understand in layman's terms, so please don't quote me on this, but in simple terms, the way I understand this breathing technique, basically you first hyperventilate and you get rid of all the CO2 from your body while oxygenating it very, very highly. So you're raising the oxygen levels while decreasing your CO2 levels. And then you hold on an empty, out breath, so to speak. And apparently, your need to breathe is based off of the accumulation of CO2 in your body. The receptors in your cells decide at which point there is too much CO2 accumulated, and that prompts the body to take a breath and basically exchange oxygen for that CO2. And then oxygen is transformed into CO2, and after some time you need to take another breath because the levels are high enough. Through extending that out breath and holding, you basically, and first oxygenating yourself very, very intensely while taking out all the CO2, you trick your receptors not to notice the accumulation of CO2 so quickly. But what happens next is wonderful. Because you allow your body a longer time on the out breath without taking in the next breath, you teach yourself not to respond to stress as greatly as before. You're literally, you're bringing in, as I said earlier, when we're going to talk about this, you're putting yourself in a good stressful state, the positive stressful state, by hyperventilating, and then you deal with that stress, observing your body being present while allowing yourself that widening of the gap. And it does wonders. It not only improves your mental health, but it also improves your physical ability and your performance. I I can always, like, I've said it so many times to my friends at Jiu-Jitsu, whenever I end up doing Wim Hof breathing just before going on the mat to train, my performance is way better than on average when I don't. And it only takes 10-15 minutes of your day. It's very, very simple. And the exploration here is obviously that you're increasing your carbon dioxide tolerance. And over time, because you're increasing it, you improve your lung capacity and you enhance physical and mental endurance. And a big part I wanted to share here before we go any further is that there is this misnomer, according to James, that we need more oxygen breathing in for better situation. And that is true to some level. There are people that literally need more oxygen within the breath, like a greater intensity of oxygen within one breath, for different reasons. But for the most part, we actually don't need more oxygen, but we need to be able to absorb more of the oxygen that we breathe in. And that can only happen if you improve your lung capacity and if you train your cells to be more open to oxygen by increasing the level of carbon dioxide tolerance. And that blew my mind. Feel free, like, if there is one thing to read this book for, is this chapter about basically the breath holding techniques, because it seems like such a simple solution to so many of our problems, not only mental but also physical, and yet it's something that, it's either considered a weird fad or something that only athletes would pursue. So I would definitely recommend you to check out these breathing techniques for sure, and I'll make sure to link it below. Now, the final theme, let's just look at our time. Oh yeah, we're fine. We're right on the ball there. The final theme is about connecting with others, about connecting with your loved ones and with yourself. As we've explored earlier, breath can allow you to be more present here and now, right? It can allow you to sort of center yourself in the present, and it can also allow you to be more present with others. So what James Nestor suggests is that since it is central to spiritual practices across cultures, from yoga to meditation stuff, it can also serve as a tool to become present and connect with others. And you'll know it if you've ever meditated or did breathing exercises with your loved one. I do it with my fiancée quite regularly, and I must say it's one of the most wonderful experiences. Of course, anything tastes better when you're sharing it with your loved one, but breathing in particular and breathing exercises are very, very powerful, meditation as well. And becoming more present will not only allow you to be more, conscious of your interactions and more skillful, as we said earlier, in choosing how to act and when, but it will also connect you on a deeper level because you're having that experience together. We all long to belong and we all long to be connected with others. And this, one of the most primal, if not the most primal activity, is also one that can connect us very, very strongly. And so I would urge you to try Wim Hof breathing, for example, with your partner as part of this episode's homework, let's say. Now, the quote for this piece is this part: breathing is a way to connect to something bigger than ourselves. It's a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. This is James Nestor's words, and they sort of resonate, I think, with what Thich Nhat Hanh said. The problem of our day and age, and we've talked about it so many times, but here we are. Sorry if you've already heard it from me. I think the problem of our day and age is because we are so overstimulated, and because there are so many ways in which we can get ourselves to not be present, we are losing hold of reality. We're losing touch with reality. And that's why it's such a superpower if you can compose yourself and if you can be here and now. It's crazy to think just how little effort we actually put into making ourselves be more present with the world and with ourselves. And it applies to our socializing skills as well, It is uncomfortable sometimes to speak with strangers or with colleagues and stuff. One big part that I've had to deal with since I quit drinking alcohol is participating in social gatherings, not drinking. And obviously they call the alcohol the social like oil or whatever, the thing that gears our ability to sort of interact and stuff. But I think it's a crutch for one. And I mean, fair enough, let people do what they want. I think alcohol is a poison essentially, and I would discourage you to from drinking it. But for the most part, the biggest challenge for me to begin with was realizing that I have to, alcohol allows you to disassociate and sort of quieten all those anxious thoughts that you might have when you're interacting with another, especially in a bigger group, especially if you're not fully comfortable in that space and stuff. Being aware and not being sober essentially allows you to be there, and that means you have to face the music, right? There is no crutch to lean on to fend off these thoughts. And I think being present and practicing breath and practicing meditation certainly allowed me and helps me on the daily to fend off these anxiety-like thoughts in a way. We've heard from Jordan Peterson again and again that apparently it's thinking about yourself and anxiety is so closely correlated that it's basically the same. So obviously try to think of yourself less. But the challenge of becoming present is that you'll have to face it. But on the other side of that challenge is the benefit of being much more at peace with yourself in those situations. And not only, you become your best friend in many ways. And it can be challenging at times, but it's certainly worth it. So I would encourage you, for the benefit of you and your loved ones, to practice being more present through breath, through meditation, through disconnecting from screens. Now, a final punchline from the book, which is quote from Shent Georgi, is 9 out of 10 top killer diseases are caused by the way we eat, we breathe, we live, and we spend our time. If you improve your eating habits, your breathing habits, and your time spending habits, you will take out 9 out of 10 killer diseases that are plaguing our world these days. That's something to strive for. That's something to think about, I think. Now, my invitation for you this week, apart from all these points that we made earlier, is to follow these few action points. And if you choose to even do 3 of them and do it consecutively over the next few weeks, I promise you'll see results and you won't want to stop. Because if there is one thing about humanity, about humans is true, is when something works for us and we enjoy the benefits of it, we want to do more of it. That's why addictions are so great, but also so challenging to kick. Because if something delivers what you're expecting and it delivers consistently, you end up, it becomes a habit. I would encourage you to create a good habit for yourself, and these are the action points from the book. Number 1, close your mouth. Either tape it or, just close it more often than not. Breathe through your nose, which is number 2. Breathe through your nose. Number 3, breathe out longer. Make your exhales longer than your inhales. Number 4, chew more or mew more. I'll link below the mewing guidance for you. Number 5, breathe more regularly and more. So, either do Wim Hof breathing once a week or some sort of other hyperventilation breathing. Basically, allow yourself to the time in your week to breathe more. And in my opinion, the best way is to do it daily. And number 6, hold your breath, which is connected to number 5. But train yourself to hold your breath, hold that presence, and essentially become a breathing through your nose master, right? Breathing through your nose, connecting, being present, and reclaim this power that you have of your ancestors of breathing the right way, right? So yeah, here we are. I hope that this episode was something that inspires you to breathe more, and also to read the book. It's a wonderful one. I'll link it below, of course, for you. Other than that, welcome back to the next season. Thank you so much for being, and thank you so much for supporting. If you'd like to, please make sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and share it with a friend. It goes a long way. It's the best way of helping the podcast to reach new heights. Other than that, have a wonderful quality breathing filled week. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.